spirits of the dead were believed to still influence the world of the living.
Is that they're actually worshiping and feeding these ancestors?
A tube that would carry the water poured in for the ritual meal directly to the corpse.
So are you talking about the church of Ephesus and these different churches that he wrote letters to?
Well, there's no harm in having this little ritual meal. We're having a picnic on Grandma's grave, and we're inviting her to partake.
Okay. Everybody, David here. I'm with my good friend, Derek Gilbert. Hey, Derek.
All right, David. This is an amazing conference.
Oh, I'm telling you. Hey, okay, so here's the thing. You're talking about the Nephilim. We're talking about Israel.
Mm-hmm.
How do you marry the two together?
It's really a lot more. There's a lot more to do with the Nephilim in the Bible than we've been taught. It's not just Genesis 6, and then the Nephilim are destroyed in the flood of Noah, and they shovel off the stage. The book of Enoch explains more that the spirits of the Nephilim destroyed in the flood became the demons that afflicted the world. And in fact, this was the default belief of the early church fathers like Irenaeus and Hippolytus and Origen. The apostles believed this as well. Until about the time of Augustine in the 5th century. He's the one who said, no, this is the sons of Seth, that there's nothing. Ironically, Augustine actually tried to Christianize the veneration of these spirits. The Canaanites who lived around ancient Israel, and this is where the connection comes in. They venerated these spirits. They thought that not only were they the spirits of their ancestors, they thought, and had to feed them with a monthly necromancy ritual where they had to summon the ancestors by name and feed them those little family gods that Jacob's wife Leah stole from her father Laban.
Yeah.
Those represented the ancestors, and they had to be fed monthly. This was a thing that was part of the culture of the pagans around ancient Israel. It was an integral part of their life. Your quality of afterlife depended on your ancestors, your descendants rather, performing the ritual correctly every 30 days on the night of no moon.
Let me bring this down to a layman's level, to my level. So after the flood, what you're telling me, I think, is there was this whole religion that we haven't even been taught,
right,
where people actually observed, worshipped, and fed the Nephilim.
That's right.
Even Constantine, with like 300 years after the death of Christ, 350 years, he was an advocate of this. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it continued on into the Roman world. The early church, believe it or not, when Constantine legalized Christianity, the earliest churches in Rome, after Constantine legalized the Christian faith, were built in graveyards, including St. Peter's Basilica, which is on the grounds of the Vatican, so that the early church, the early Christians, could continue the practice of going to the grave sites of their ancestors and performing these ritual meals. They would pour out the drink on the tomb. In fact, when they did archaeological work inside St. Peter's Basilica a few years back, they found the shrine that holds the body of St. Peter.
Right.
The tomb next to Peter's has a libation tube, a tube that would carry the water poured in for the ritual meal directly to the corpse.
So are you saying in Scripture that when we read Scripture that the subplot of this,
that's a good way of putting it,
is, because I think in terms of script,
right.
The subplot is that they're actually worshiping and feeding these ancestors?
Right. Think about this. In Isaiah, he condemns the sacrificing in tombs and among the in gardens and among the tombs, and eating pig's flesh and tainted broth. This is Isaiah 57, Isaiah 65. Why would he condemn those practices? Because that was a regular part of the Canaanite worship around ancient Israel. The spirits of the dead were believed to still influence the world of the living. The thing is, those spirits aren't human. We see nothing in the Bible about human spirits returning to the land of living except for Samuel, who visited King Saul with a message from God. God allowed that to happen. The other spirits, the demons that Jesus and the apostles cast out in the New Testament, Those were spirits of the Nephilim, and again, that was the belief of the early church. That was kind of pushed out of Christian theology around the 5th century after Augustine said, nah, that's too weird.
Okay, I'm digesting this, Derek, for the first time because it's blowing my little Sunday school mind.
It goes deeper than this, because the kings of the Canaanites, and these were the mighty men who were of old, it was believed that the kings would join something called the Assembly of the Rephaim after death.
Okay, so like, okay, the Book of Acts, the early church, and they didn't call themselves Christians, by the way. That was an outside source that did that.
Yes.
The way they didn't have this worship of the Nephilim or of the ancestors. What you're saying is, as time went on, as we do as humans, right? Deception comes in, the evil one comes in. You're saying the early church, not meaning Acts, but the early Christians after the Book of Acts, as time went on, because Paul wrote these letters to the different churches. Are you talking about the church of Ephesus and these different churches that he wrote letters to?
Yes, that later cultural practices. I mean, the early Christians may have seen these as just cultural practices. Well, there's no harm in having this little ritual meal. We're having a picnic on Grandma's grave, and we're inviting her to partake and pouring out the water. This is just whereas the early church, in fact, many in the early church who were Jews, because that was the earliest Christians were Jews. There was a very sharp disagreement between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. The Sadducees believed there was no resurrection. The church at Corinth apparently believed that there was no resurrection, and Paul made it clear, look, if there's no resurrection, then even Jesus isn't raised, and if Christ is not raised, then our preaching is in vain, your faith is in vain, and we of all men are most miserable. He said, there is a resurrection. Christ was the first fruits of the resurrection, meaning he's the template for us when we are raised incorruptible. And I'm looking forward to that because my knee gives me trouble from now time to time. But the resurrection of the body is something we don't hear about much in church. But the pagans around ancient Israel for thousands of years believed that their mighty men who were of old, their divinized kings, the dead kings, would be resurrected by their creator god El. And I think we see in Ezekiel and Isaiah prophecies of their ultimate destruction. Paul puts a cap on it in 1 Corinthians 15 by saying, look, on that day, we will be raised incorruptible to inherit the kingdom.
You know, Derek, when you explain it this way and you give us the subplot of Scripture, it's so much easier to understand now. Because now that just you mentioning it, when I go back and read it, I'm going to read that into it and go, that's what he's talking about. When we come back, I want to ask you a question. I'm going to ask Derek, the demons that walk the face of the earth when Jesus walked the face of the earth in the flesh as a man, are they the same kind of demons that we deal with today, you and I? Stay with us when we come back. Welcome to the Last Evangelist crowdfunding campaign. I'm so happy to have you take this journey with me. I'm going to play a character named John Rhodes, and I'm an FBI agent. My job is to bust underground churches. That's right, the churches have now married the government. You have the one world government married to the one world religious system, and so you either have the government church or the underground church. My job is to bust the underground church. I go in, I seek them out, I arrest them, and I find out where the next one is, until one night I meet God. So with the Bible in one hand and a gun in the other, I set out to find the Antichrist. I deal with cashless society, mark of the beast, and what's happening according to Matthew 24 in the book of Revelation, the end times. Also, too, I really want this TV series to spawn heroes. I want to play a hero to the kids. You know, kids really need good role models these days, and I feel like with The Last Evangelist, we could fulfill that need. Now, people ask me, okay, David, fine, you're going to shoot it. Where's it going to come out? Well, guess what? We have worldwide distribution through ROKU, Amazon, and other platforms. We have David Heavener TV, davidheavener.tv, where you'll be able to watch it exclusively, and who knows, you may be able to watch it other places too once it kicks off and becomes very successful. So I want to thank you for being involved. I appreciate this time that you spent with me. I want you to hit that button. Thank you, and God bless you.